Bloomberg recently reported that South Africa is the second most stressed out country in the entire world. Now joining me in studio is clinical psychologist Johan van Rooyen and on Google Hangouts, David Lewis from Corruption Watch to help us unpack this report. Thank you both for joining me.
Cool. Pleasure.
All right, well, Bloomberg cited the level of corruption as 43, and this is one of the major contributing factors to South Africa being stressed out. David, why don't you tell me how we measure our corruption levels?
Well, the score of 43 that is referred to here is Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, which is a global index, a global comparative index calculated on the basis of interviews done in each country on an identical interview instrument, and it's not a measure of actual levels of corruption, but a measure of perceptions of corruption, which I have no reason to believe don't mirror actual experiences of corruption. In fact, the index that the Transparency International does on actual measures of corruption pretty much mirrors the perceptions as one would expect. And that's the measure that is used here.
Now, Johan, why would something like corruption add to a country as a whole being stressed out?
Yeah, I think it's a whole issue about feeling safe and feeling unsafe. I mean, my own reaction to reading through the report and looking at the figures, I could feel my own stress levels going up a bit there. So I think it's awareness, if it affects you as a country and you read it. But I think if it affects you directly as well, it can add to much higher stress levels. If you work at a company and you've been directly affected by corruption, for example, then it can add to higher stress levels. But if you just read about it in the papers, it definitely adds to levels of stress as well.
Now, David, when you're going through and getting these corruption statistics, do you look at how we can decrease this number? How can we stop corruption? Is that measured?
Well, it's an incredibly wicked problem. Wicked in the sense that, not of being evil, but wicked in the sense of being extremely difficult to solve, and you never solve it by eliminating it. You solve it by limiting the possibility of it. So, there are two ends of the spectrum, both of which are necessary. The one is effective law enforcement. The other is public participation. And I mean, obviously, what we do, not being a law enforcement agency, is encourage public participation in combating corruption, and the form that we try and encourage that in is in reporting to us experiences of corruption. I think in a democracy, once people get talking a lot and complaining a lot and proposing solutions a lot, that's the mode of change in a democracy. And that's what we're intent on doing. But there has to be effective law enforcement as well, and there is not very effective law enforcement in South Africa. And so one of the institutions one of the sets of institutions upon which we want to impose pressure are precisely the law enforcement institutions, which are drastically in need of reform and general improvement. And they're also, beset by corruption themselves. So, and there are a variety of other things, more effective procurement systems, more effective appointment systems. These are all a range of measures that go to limiting a country's or system's vulnerability to corruption.
Now, on that note, Johan, do you think that if as a country we put pressure on governments and law enforcement to fight corruption, would that initial pressure stress us out even more?
I think it's about if you put it forward and you sit with the feeling of not being heard. And I think there's a repetitive pattern of keep on wanting to fight it and then nothing happens and you see corruption figures going higher and higher. That can definitely lead to higher levels of stress then.
Yeah.